Hello and welcome to video number 4 in SQL series where we learn SQL and programming through exercise and practice. This series is focused more on SQL than the language that we're using to collaborate with the SQL. In this series I'm using PHP to work with SQL, but it's not so much a tutorial focused on PHP. The focus is to practice working with databases and writing SQL statements that are commonly used, particularly in web development. I'm a visual learner and I learn through practice, and I think it's the easiest way to remember scripts in different languages is by actually using the commands in a real project. So I create practice projects in order to make it easier for the commands to stick into your head. That's the only way that you're going to remember the code is through practice, and you're never going to remember every single script and every single command and every single function. But the purpose of practice is so that you can memorize the most basic commands that you use a lot. And in my videos, we're going to be using a lot of the commands that are most commonly used. So without further ado, let's get started with the continuation of this fictitious blog. We have this page that pulls a record from a database and displays it on a page just like a blog post. And to see a different post, we just type the ID and the URL, and then you'll see a different post, and you have this form. So if I wanted to create a new post, let's just say this is a new post example and webdgem, and let's go generate a paragraph here. Say I want 2 paragraphs. See, I need it on lorem times 2 gives me 2 paragraphs, and I'm going to simply drag, cut and paste this from here to here and hit publish, and you'll see this article has been published. And to see that, which I know is the 4th article, and that's what we created in the other one. In this video, we're going to be using SQL to edit the post. So as always, before we create a frontline example of how to use this, we're going to do it on the back end first. So let's open the terminal and let's start the driver by typing mysql -u for user and root, and then enter. Alright, so now that we're in the driver, we need to pick the database, and I have a config file here. My database name is blog simulation. So you type use and then the database, name of the database that you're using. And if you want to see the tables in the database, you type show tables, and I have blog posts. And if you want to see the fields, you type describe, or DESC for short, and then the name of the table. And these are the fields. I have a UID, title, pub date, author, and post. So I'm going to need this for editing. I just copied that, and you don't have to do this. It's just so you see this, and I'm going to comment this out. That's just for future reference. Now we go back to the terminal, and let's edit the last article that I published. And I hover over it. If you look in the bottom corner of the screen down here, you'll see the number with the ID of 4. So look in the bottom left hand corner, and you'll see the ID of this post is 4. So to edit this, we need to use the keyword update. So the statement will begin with update. Update is the equivalent of edit. Update, and then the name of the table, which is this right here. Update blog post set. This means we're setting, which field are we setting? And let's change the title. So let's say set title and equals, and what is the value? So currently it says this is a new post example. Let's change the title to this post was edited. So update blog post set title equals this post was edited, where this unique ID, which is the primary key, where UID equals 4. Enter. Alright, everything's good now. Let's just refresh this page, and you see it was edited. And let's do that again. Say I want to change the name right here. So I'm going to put the up arrow so I don't have to type this again. So up arrow, and then let's change this. We're changing instead of the title, we're changing the author. So author equals Nikki web dev, and then hit enter and refresh the page, and you'll see a change right there. Okay, so now let's use this in an actual project, which is the fictitious blog that we've been working on. So let's grab this, copy this SQL statement just so that we don't have to type it again, and I'm going to comment out that this is all the code from this project. These are all the codes that we've used so far, and this is the one for this project. So just like adding, we need to have a form to edit. So the name of this page is form. Let's go and copy the page. So I'm going to create a new page, and we'll call this edit post. You can just type edit, and I'm going to paste that code that I just copied, and I'm going to type this in the browser. Now you see this right here. The reason this is still showing is because we have a session, and we want to unset that message. So to do that, I'm going to grab this right here, choose the message, and there's a procedure happening here, and we're just going to add one line. So this says, if is set, echo message. So what I'm going to do is add some curly brackets because I'm going to add another statement. So our first statement is, if is set, then we echo the message. The next line, I'm going to put unset, and then we're going to unset. So I did that here, and I'm also going to copy this and replace it on the form, which is right here. Okay, so now let us come back to this page. The first time it's going to show. The second time it'll be unset, so the message is going. So we're editing this edit page now, and to be on this page, first we need to know what post is being edited. So we need to require that if we visit this page, it needs to have an ID in the URL. So let's go up here, and we're basically going to say if we don't have an ID in the URL, don't continue with the code. So if it's not set, get ID, then die, and message is saying, I'm gonna say, oops, looks like you are lost. Alright, let's see. Alright, so now let's put an ID there, question mark, ID equals 4. Alright, so in order to continue the code on this page, there needs to be an ID. Once we have the ID, then we're going to query our database to pull the data on that ID. So we need the config file right here. So let's type require once, and we want this config file, which allows us to connect to the database. Here, we created this in another tutorial in case, say, this is a name, and it's in the directory named inc. Then we're going to instantiate, create a new instance of a PDO. We type PDO is our variable equals new PDO, and then just like the other file, actually, we could just copy all this. So this is the same code that I began to write. You can type con or PDO like I originally had. So if PDO, that just says if we can connect, if we successfully make the connection, then we're going to do some SQL procedures. So the new PDO has to have this, which is your host, database name, and char set, the user, the password, and this is optional. You don't have to include that. So if you successfully connect, and we're going to create an SQL statement. Now, this variable, you don't have to store the statement in a variable. It just makes it easier to read the code by separating the statement from the other part. So our statement is basically, first we're going to pull up the information on this ID right here. So we're just doing a query. So we're going to select all from blog post, which is the name of our table is blog post, where UID equals this right here. All right. You see I remove right here. So we're just doing a query here. So alright, then we write our statement. So we're gonna create a variable for the statement. Statement equals whatever we named the object, and our PDO object in this instance is named PDO query, and we're querying this right here. So since this is such a short query, I'm actually going to just move it here and remove the variable. Okay, so statement equals query, and here's our query. If it was a long query, I would actually have kept it in that variable, and then I would put the variable in here. But because it's such a short SQL statement, I just reduced the extra line of code by putting the query in here. So statement equals object, PDO object, query, and then that's the query. So we queried the database successfully, but to use that information, we're going to store it into an array. So our array is going to be called row, and row equals statement fetch. So now all the information that was pulled here is going to be stored in this row. So to see this actually being used, I'm going to take this row, and we want to see the title. So right here in the input field, I'm going to type value equals, and question mark equals question mark. This is the shorthand of echo, and row, we want the row field goes in the square brackets, the title. So take a quick look at this shorthand of echoing the variable. The variable we're echoing is the title that is pulled from our query. So let us refresh the page, and you'll see that it showed up here. And so for these other two fields, you just pretty much do the same thing, except text area is a little bit different. So for author, you just put the value equals, and you change this to the field name, which is author. And then for the text area, you don't need value equals. You put the field name, which is post, here. And now let's refresh the page again, so you can see the information was automatically generated. So we go to 3, and we have the third, and 2, and then 1. Now what happens if you enter an ID that does not exist? You got error message. And because this is not a PHP tutorial, I'm actually not going to cover or explain how to fix that. Alright, really, it's actually just simple. If the results are less than 1, then you kill the code just like you killed the code up here. So here we go. Alright, so back on a page that does have an ID that matches, the next thing we're going to do is we need to make it so that when this button is pushed, the record or the row in the database gets updated. So to do that, let's take a look at the button first. So this says publish. Let's change this to say edit, and make sure you change the name to be edit too. Alright, so let's create an if statement here, and this is going to say edit. This code is going to edit a record, and this code displays, or rather fetches record field. This one edit record fields, and this one fetches it. So we're going to move some things around here. So let's move this here, and then move this inside this if statement. And the reason is because we instantiate the object here. So since we instantiate the object here, then we want to perform the SQL procedures inside of this if statement. So first we're going to say if this post button down here named edit, if the method equals post. So if the server method equals post, if server request method is equal to post, then let's store the values into variables. Again, this is optional. This just makes it easier to read the code. So we have title, and then we have the author, and then we have the post. And the values for all three of these actually do not need to single quotes because the values are stored in here. So we have the title, author, and post. And remember, these values come from the field names. So the field name is title, author, and post. I'm going to type if server method equals post, and is set the edit. This is the edit button. So if server method equals post and the edit button was pushed, then you have these variables. Now remember, we're already connected to the database, so we just need to execute a procedure. So let's create the SQL statement, and this one we saved here. So I'm going to copy this. Well, we don't need a semicolon, so ignore the semicolon and just copy that code. And we're going to change this. You replace this with a question mark and this with a question mark, and then you create a prepare statement. So statement is the variable name, and we're going to use the object. Statement equals object method is prepare, and we're going to the argument. The argument is SQL. So this is our prepare statement. This argument is passed in here, and you could save a line of code if you want, and just move this here. After you have the prepare statement, then you want to execute the statement. So statement execute, and this is an array that you put the arguments. The arguments are what this question mark placeholder is for, and it needs to go in the same order. So the first argument is this right here, and the second argument, the UID, is what is in the URL, which is get. Alright, so that will do it. There is one more thing that you need to do before you can use this, is the action here is the same page. So we're on the same page, and the action must be set to the same page. So, alright, now let's test it out, and let's type something. There's one more thing actually I forgot. In this statement, we're only updating the author, so we need to make it so that we update any of the fields. So let's go ahead and create that variable and put this back here. And alright, so update blog post set. So we also want the title and the post. So we set author equals question mark, title equals question mark, and post equals question mark. Now remember, the field names need to match. So title, author, and post. And then here you need to make sure you keep the same order. So author is first, title is second, post is third, and then ID. So first question mark author, second question mark title, third question mark post, and the last question mark is get ID. So we are on ID number 1, and I'm going to change the title to how to edit and update. How to edit and update with form. How to edit and update SQL database with form, and let's change the name to YouTube WebDGem. And for the paragraph, I'm just going to move this one down and move this one up and make this bold. Alright, then hit the edit. Okay, everything's changed. There's one thing you should do that is not related to SQL, but if you're also learning PHP, before you enter data, there's two things you should do. First, you should trim any space by using this function called trim. So I just type the function and I'm going to move. And then you should also strip, basically transform these characters into HTML entities. So let us do HTML special chars. And then I'm going to move this into here. Now there's a way that you could do this. You could do this differently so it's easier to read, which is basically create the variable, make the changes, then make the changes on the variable again. But since this is not a PHP tutorial, we're just going to keep the code minimized. So this is the way to do it to reduce the number of lines of code. Doing this helps you to not mess up the code accidentally, and it also helps to prevent SQL injection if this was something that you would use on an actual website. And the other thing that we want to do here is we're going to create a success message. And so just after you edit the row, then you create a success message which says post, and I'm going to put the ID, remove the single quotes, post has been edited. Alright, so let's here, and I didn't make any changes, or did I? Just hit edit, and now you see the message and this right here. And then I'm going to do this one more time. Now, if you look at the page source, which if you're in Chrome, you're going to have to refresh the page to see it, you'll see that these characters that you see right here, they're actually HTML entities. So that makes it so that this code does not execute any scripts. Now, this white space that keeps showing up, I'm certain is due to this. So let's see if we do this here again. Alright, so you see that remove the white space. So that is pretty much we have achieved our goal for this. Let's go to another page and change the title. Alright, I'm on post number 4 and I'm going to edit it. Post 4 has been edited. Now if we want to see that post, right here, this is the old post, this is the new post. Now as you can see, we have a problem. So to fix that from showing like that, we need to go to the page that this is decoding on, which is this right here, and we're going to decode the special characters. So the function looks like the other function except it's decode, underscore decode. So HTML special charge decode. And now you can see on this page, we don't use the special charge on the actual output, but when you're editing the page, you want to see these right here. Alright, so now that we've reached the end of this part, the question is, what if we have a database or a table and we want to make changes? For instance, we have a pub date here, but we also want to add a field to save the date that it was last edited. So you want the original published date and you want the last edited date. How do you add a new field? Or say you want to change the field name. How do you change the field name to an existing table? Those questions are going to be answered in a whole separate tutorial. But for now, hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe. If you love programming, I'm going to be creating a whole lot of programming videos, mostly on web development because that's my passion. Backend programming, PHP, database management, that's what I love. That's what I'll be teaching. Don't forget to practice. Practice makes perfect. See you in the next video.